Hi guys, and welcome to this recording. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about mental health and faith and how God works and how all these things come together. I'm calling this Melancholy and the Finite sadness. In a moment, I'm going to be calling up a couple of really amazing people. They are Jesse and Sarah Rinkenberger. Now, I got to know the Rinkenbergers about 2 years ago in our home church in SIB KL, and they hail from Minnesota, and they're Americans, but they've been living with their 5 children abroad for the last 15, 16 years now. They've been living in a variety of countries and getting involved in various business sectors in that whole time. The both of them are very active and very passionate in mentoring and coaching young marketplace leaders through Resource Global. That's a Chicago-based organization. They're starting the first cohort here in KL next year, 2021. But really, the reason why I want to call them today and speak with them is to hear their journey on mental health and depression and their faith, and to learn a thing or two from them. So let's get them on the line. Hi, Jesse. Hi, Sarah. How are you guys doing?
Hi. Hi, Pastor Fergus.
We're well.
We're okay.
Good to see you across.
Yeah. Just for the benefit of all our viewers, you guys have been living in Malaysia for some time now?
Yeah, we've been living here about the last 13 years or so, both in Penang and also in Kuala Lumpur.
So, Sarah, I hear you speak some Mandarin, more than me. Yeah.
你听过了吗？
听过。
你听过了，我说了，我会说一点点的。
一点点。你们全家在家好吗？还是
5个孩子还可以吧？他们有的时候不太高兴在家里，父母爸爸妈妈也不太高兴，可是我们还可以每个人在一起。你一样是不是
？Yep. Yeah. And you guys speak some PM as well? You know your time here?
Boleh lah, boleh cakap bahasa.
Boleh cakap bahasa. Ya, so anak-anak tak ada bola macam mana?
Ya, sekarang susah sebab mereka tak boleh keluar rumah. So mereka cuba main-main dan berlatih football dalam rumah. So
dalam Zoom.
Sikit crazy.
All right, good stuff. Good. Always a joy to talk to you guys. But what I really wanted to chat with you guys today, actually, Sarah, to hear from your story a bit about your own journey with mental health issues and depression in particular, not entirely, but maybe that's a good place to launch off. So maybe you can share with us about your journey with depression.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons Jesse's here with me is that with any sort of journey, but with mental health, and the reason you're here with me, Fergus, is that it's not just one person's journey. It really is a journey that affects more, those who are closest to. So you, as being our pastor, as part of the body here, and then Jesse being my husband, it's all together. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. It was about 4 years ago when I started first having maybe 3.5 years ago, I guess, like just extra long periods of heaviness, of not wanting to get out of bed, of things that used to be exciting were no longer interesting. And I'm a pretty energetic, dynamic personality. And so this was very weird, and it was strange for you too, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just different seeing her not having as much motivation, not having as much drive, desire, and I mean, she loves people, loves making friends, and she really didn't have so much of that desire for quite a while. So I knew that
even decision making things. I'm a quick decision maker. I couldn't figure out what to make for dinner. I would come to Jesse and say,
I don't know what to make for dinner.
I would be like, can you help tell me what to make? Because I don't know how to make this decision. So there was warning signs, and yet as a good Christian, as someone who loves Jesus, I thought, it can't be depression. I'm obeying him. I'm following him. I'm praying. I'm reading my Bible. We're going back to Malaysia in a few months. We are doing the right things. It can't be depression.
And it's not something that you can just kind of like snap out of it, like, oh, come on, just get over it, you know, just make the decision, just find a bit of mojo, get yourself going. What don't we understand about depression for those who have never had to go through it?
Right. I think that's one thing that that has really crystallized to me in these last, because I did come out of it. I went on antidepressants and I got some Christian counseling, and I came out of it within a couple months of actually giving in and admitting and saying, okay, maybe I do need some outside help.
Was it hard?
It was hard. It was just, go ahead.
What was it hard to kind of like almost to the effect of conceding and saying, okay, I have this thing, you know, and I'm just gonna call it for what it is, and I don't care what the Christian community is gonna say. I'm just gonna, tell us a bit about it.
It was very hard because I am a strong, self-confident. We've lived in, difficult countries. I've gone through, we've had challenges, babies born prematurely, babies diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. We've had difficulties. We've had our fair share. And so I, thought in my mind, my faith is strong. I'm not going to suffer from this. And I had the stigma, I think, that maybe many of us have, that if you keep strong in your faith, you won't suffer like those other people. And so, and I think after going through it, so one thing that helped was it was this Christian woman that I really admired, who had been in the Congo for many years, who came to me after a year of seeing me in tears at different times asking for prayer. She said, Sarah, don't go back to Malaysia like this. I really feel like you need to maybe see someone for this and get some advice if medically there can be some help. And so I think for me, that's what I needed. I needed someone that I respected in the Christian community to kind of legitimize it for me, because I had this idea that if I was strong enough, but this woman, I really, she was the person for me.
So tell us a little bit more about what it feels like to be in a depression bout, because sometimes we think, okay, just get up, why can't you just do this, and it's not so simple. And what does it feel like to be in the middle of it?
Well, I think we both can answer this, but so I went on medication. After a couple months, we came back here. I had a lot of energy. I was a different person. I was able to homeschool. I was able to help with some social justice things that happened in our neighborhood. I was doing many things. We moved down here to KL, continuing to homeschool, continue to make friends, and a second period of depression came, and at that time, we were able to recognize it, I guess, quicker. Mm-hmm. And, I was seeing a psychiatrist here in KL already just to oversee my medication. And I had come off the antidepressant medication. And so we thought, okay, I'll just go back on and everything will be great. It wasn't. It was a year that time. That second time of trying different medications and not helping. And I don't know to this day whether I'm helped right now by that antidepressant that I'm, the fourth one that we tried, or it's just God's mercy and grace or it's I don't, what? Combination of everything. But it was lifted a few months ago, the heaviness. What it is like I felt, and it's soon enough. I mean, it's soon enough history that
your capacity is diminished, right? And clear thinking, and you're basically just focusing on a few things, and that's about it. But definitely a lessening of capacity is.
And it's just a heaviness. It's just a sadness that I would try my best and I would sing. And I remember one of the Easter services at SAB coming in there, and the song, I raise a hallelujah. Mm-hmm. And I love, there's some really good truth in that song. And worship is one thing through that whole year of depression that I was at SAB that I really appreciated the worship, because I felt like I could at least mouth the words. And I knew my God, even though I was struggling, my God was not displeased with me, and my God was not angry at me. I guess through my journey, my faith prior to depression was strong enough that when I was in it, I didn't feel any resentment towards God. I really took comfort in knowing that other saints in the past have struggled. I mean, melancholy is something they called before they attribute it to depression, but John Bunyan, Pilgrim's Progress, Charles, what's his name? Spurgeon, many people who are, I mean, there's many other, those are just two white guys. I'm sure there's many other Asians that, that have struggled with melancholy, but it feels like a stigma nowadays that we, it's easy just for people in depression to feel really on the outside of a community, and even maybe more so in the church, which is really my heart to help change, I guess.
I've got a question. Sarah, earlier you were saying that you felt that your God was pleased with you. I think and he was okay with you. He wasn't judging you. He wasn't trying to ask you why you are like that, the way you are. Maybe I can ask the both of you this question, and from different vantage points. Was there anything that the rest of us did, very, very generically, the rest of us in the community did, said to you, or said in general, said from stage, in church or whatever, that actually we hope that it helps, or maybe, but it doesn't help, or maybe it even makes it worse?
Well, first, I'll just before I'll answer that real quick, but I think one of the ways that was helpful and the ways that I could come to that place of feeling God's pleasure is by, there was one couple in New Zealand that we've known for many years, and they have both gone through depression seasons themselves, or dark nights of the soul, whatever you want to call it. That's another spiritual depression. There's a lot of books that call it different things, but they understood. Whereas another couple who mentors us had not experienced it themselves personally. So they kind of would refer to it as like, oh, Sarah, do you have your energy back? How's your, just seeing it that way. And it wasn't just my energy back. It was a longer journey, and I couldn't feel this pressure. So talking to someone who understood it, like this couple in New Zealand, when we would talk to them, and you can share from your perspective, because I think you've never been diagnosed with anything, but you struggled during that second time that I went through as well. But when someone who had been there in a way, when they spoke into my life, and when they said, it reminded me of God's love, it was very different than someone who hadn't. And so that makes it difficult for people in the church who haven't. But I think one thing, to answer your question, I just think when we use black and white statements about mental health, which are meant for good, I think that there's good intentions. But anytime we use black and white statements, which could be,
what kind of statements? Black and
well,
white.
like for example, like just saying people with depression must be struggling with demon possession.
Okay.
Or oppression.
Or oppression. Or you just need to pray more and read more of the Bible, and then your depression will be fine.
Okay.
I've heard that before. That happened to me. When I was sad, I just read more Psalms, and then everything was fine. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, or just exercise your faith, or having enough faith, or just holding on. I think sometimes there can be we want to get to victory quick. Right? We want to get the victory soon and get the triumph soon. And I think that's probably what I was hoping for, expecting, but it didn't work out like that. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of questions you have. Why is this happening? There's a variety of different reasons it could be. But then having that foundation that God is here, he's in all of this, mm-hmm. and giving him time to do what he wants to do.
You were saying that it's not as straightforward as where's your faith? Why don't you have faith? How do those two mingle? Especially for you, Jesse, because you had to see Sarah go through that whole journey from your vantage point as a caregiver, as a husband. How did your own faith come into play in helping Sarah through the darkest nights?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the second time when she experienced depression was harder than the first time, for sure. because I was I was thinking, well, we went through this once and that was probably going to be enough. And, and we've come through this. And so that was definitely harder. And I think the fact that it didn't go away quickly, and
we were doing what we knew how to do.
Right.
We were trying to fix it.
And I think that, and we were also kind of in a new city. We had just moved down here to Kuala Lumpur from Penang after many years. And so there were some other changes going on, and work and family and different things happening at the same time. And so, I think it was good to have those regular spiritual routines going on in your life that maybe weren't always supercharged, but at least you're, like she said, you're going to church, you're worshiping. She said you're mouthing the words, you're taking walks out with the Lord and just talking to the Lord and crying out to the Lord, yelling at the Lord, and what's changing here, what's not changing. So I think that those were things that kind of caught us. And but I think also just having the right expectation of that it's not necessarily a quick fix, and then back to normal life. I think we're all kind of experiencing that right now with COVID. Is normal life again maybe is not what God has for us. And he wants us to change us through these situations, including depression. So yeah.
Jesse, you were saying just now that you guys had just moved from Penang down to KL. Was it important for you or for the both of you to be able to pinpoint a root cause for that kind of like caused the onset of this depression? What was it important, or were you just trying to fix it where you were?
I think for me, especially the second time, I was much more wanting to pinpoint it. What was the trigger? Because I don't want it to happen again.
Right.
So there was a lot more, I think, fear, or even now, will it happen again? And so trying to avoid those triggers, there's some good things to that, but then we also can't control our lives. God is in control of our lives, and we have to trust him in that. But I think that was something I wanted to know what was it that triggered it. And we kind of did come to some of those conclusions, but
not all of those triggers though are things that necessarily you can
control,
trigger proof your life.
Yeah.
Like one of them was my grandma dying.
Okay.
And I was, there's a number of different things, but I think that also goes back to like, am I just trying to protect myself so I don't suffer again? Or am I trusting my Father who accepts me and loves me and has the best interest in mind for me?
I am curious though, because I am asking this next question as a pastor, or maybe if you could say as your typical pastor. One of the things that concerns us is that the faith of our people is strong, that our people are trusting in God, and sometimes, in fact, I would say often, the most assuring things about your faith is when it is visible, and I think you use the expression that is highly charged. When we can see highly charged manifestations of people's faith and walk with God, it assures us. Yeah.
So he's saying keep the routines even if they're not highly charged.
Even if they're not really charged.
Meaning not a lot of emotion.
Yeah, I know. No, that's great. The thing I wanted to ask is, as pastors, we like to see that our people have tangible, if you can say, highly charged spiritual experiences, and I think that it's natural. It may not always be the right thing. So here's my question: is encouraging someone going through something like depression, encouraging them to have faith, to pray more? Is it more for ourselves? Maybe because we dare not grieve or go through a cycle of grieving together with the person, or dare not go through a cycle of downtime, or go through a dark night, and just call it out as a dark night and just go through it and concede that there's not going to be any pumped up expressions of faith for a while. Is that something that as people in the ministry we can learn in terms of how we engage with someone struggling with mental health problems?
Yeah, seasons. And I was reading Pete Scazzaro. He talked about seasons. I think he came to SIB a few years ago, and just we have winter and spring and summer and fall, and forget what they all are, but I know winter is death, spring is sowing, I think, summer is fruitfulness, fall is transition. And we in the Christian world often want to be in spring and summer, and we don't like going into the fall or the winter. And we want to keep everybody up, keep everybody in spring and summer, being fruitful, and that's how we can
determine
sort of
success, kind of.
Yeah, or just there's some external markers we can see for that, I guess, more easily. And he was just really cautioning against that winter has a purpose and fall has its purpose. And I mean, here in Malaysia, we don't have so many seasons, right?
Maybe that's our problem.
That's our problem. That's our problem.
We're always in summer.
We don't have the right metaphors to understand this.
And so, yeah, he just talked about when you're in summer, don't try to put your summer on somebody who maybe is going through a winter. And when you're going through winter, you don't, project your season onto other people, but to be sensitive to those things and know that it won't always be there. That God's taken us through that. So
I think one area that I would just say is that, like, finding solace for me, partly in Christ, was realizing that he himself is described as a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, in Isaiah 53:3. And so that's who Christ is. That he's not just, he is the victorious king, and he's a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief and suffering. And so this both and paradox of who our God is amazing, and it's something that we need to cherish, all those aspects.
Even right now, I think for anyone viewing this at home, if you've got questions, I want to encourage those who are at home viewing this on your phones, on your computers, to just type in a question, and if there are enough questions for Sarah and Jesse, if there are enough questions, maybe we can bring them back, make another call one day and do a part 2 where they can answer some of your questions. So please go ahead, feel free and write questions in the comment section in this video. But back to you guys, Jesse and Sarah. If you could speak directly to someone who's watching this at home, and they may or may not be struggling with something that could be depression, or maybe it's just being swept under the rug as a MCO lockdown blues. I mean, I can imagine that this is the season when talking about something like this is particularly important, because I think we can, the MCO and the lockdown can become kind of like it can mask a lot of things that could really be going on underneath. So what will you say to our viewers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say is don't suffer alone, and don't let your idea that a strong Christian and a faith-filled Christian equals that you're never going to have a struggle or a fear. Sometimes when I was in those hard times, when I'd come to church, I would try to build myself up, and not just at SIB, but also back at our home church in Minnesota. I would think I have to be strong enough. And we were going to a conference and it was all about grace. And I was like, Jesse, I don't think I'm not strong enough to go and face these people and act like and then we said, what's wrong with this picture? Like, I feel like I have to be strong enough to put on this face, to be happy Christian, in order to go to a place where they're talking about grace. And so that's what I would say is, like, it's okay, and help those Christians around you who maybe don't understand. Help them by being honest with them, and we in the church will learn how to hear you and love you and point you to Jesus. It might take us a little bit longer than the world, but we're there, and we have a better answer than the world does.
Amen. So but what about any of our viewers who don't have that relationship with Jesus? what would you say to them if they are going through something like this and they don't have that foundation that you had, Sarah? So they can't walk into church and mouth to worship lyrics, what would you say to them if they're watching this at home?
I'm an avid, I feel like it's a really important thing, not just in the church. I'm talking about it with my secular friends. I'm talking about it on LinkedIn. I feel like it's not just a church's issue about the stigma. I've talked about it with a lot of my Malay friends, moms that I'm doing co-ops with when I was in depression. So I feel for anyone, regardless what race, religion you're coming from, the first step is just that vulnerability and being willing to say, hey, I'm not okay. This is a struggle right now, and find someone that can hear that from you. Mm-hmm. And if you just keep on looking for that, and we are willing to hear it from you, and so is Fergus.
So is Fergus. So is Fergus. Sarah, we're gonna have to wrap up this conversation fairly soon. But you shared 3 links with us. Right. I'm just gonna put the share screen on, and maybe you can tell us a bit about each of these links. So this is a link from the New York Times. Can you tell us a little bit about this one and why our viewers should want to swing by and just spend 10 minutes reading it?
I updated the 3 links to 2 other ones, but anyway, that's okay. I was not going to share this one, but you can share. I think this one just talks I don't even know why I shared.
Oh no, I like this link.
Okay, Fergus, why don't you share why we share?
I like that link, that New York Times link, because it talks about the necessity for grieving. It's a little bit like what Jesse was saying about winters. And I think that writer was talking about the necessity for us to be hopeful without feeling the need to be optimistic all the time. I think
right.
There's a difference between the two of them. And right. I read that. I thought it's a very necessary message for anyone to be hearing it.
Right.
And it's good that the Times, the New York Times, is saying that. There is the next link is this one. Yes.
Okay, so that one is something I don't know too much about, but I believe it's a Christian perspective of how do we in the church help people with mental health. And so go there and feel free. There's blogs. There's a workbook from a Christian perspective.
Cool. And the last one, this one from HBR.
Yeah. So this one is also just talking about the current situation with COVID. I think it's bringing up that Harvard Business Review is saying, hey, it's grief is part of what's going on here, and some of us are going straight to the end stage of grief without working through some of the realities. So our daughter's piano teacher is calling because we have 5 minutes ago supposed to have a piano lesson. So
that's good. We're gonna have to wrap up this call anyway. So thanks so much, Jesse. Thanks so much, Sarah. If there are enough questions and people want to know more about this thing and your journey, and I would love to get you guys on the line again. Until then, enjoy the piano class for your daughter. And
thank you.
Thanks, Fergus.
We'll talk with you guys. Yes.
Okay.
Bless you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Anyway, thanks so much to Jesse and Sarah for the really nice time catching up with them. But really, on a more serious note, if you're watching this at home and you're struggling with what could feel a bit like mental health problems, if you're struggling with what could very well be depression, please don't sweep it under the rug. Please don't put it away and say, oh, I'm just feeling blue because of the lockdown, but speak to someone. And if you really need help, you can DM me here as well. You can find me on Twitter on the handle below. You can find me on Instagram on the handle below as well. And just speak to someone, reach out, because you should not be going through this alone. Until then, please if you've got more questions, keep them coming, keep typing them into the comments section. And if for nothing else, we want to be there to be able to pray along with you and to support you in this journey. So I hope to see you guys again if I ever do this again. Until then, I hope you've enjoyed this recording. I'll see you guys. Take care. God bless.